All right. Welcome, everyone. It's Ashley from Budgets Made Easy. And tonight we are talking with Eric about different ways to hack your budget, simple steps for saving money and paying off debt. So we have a full hour for you guys tonight, Q&A at the end. If you have questions, just put them in the chat box and Sarah will help us out with the Q&As at the end. But we're going to dive in and just go ahead and get started. And I'll just go ahead and apologize if my children happen to pop in. If you know me and have seen me live, you know that happens quite frequently. So I ask for your patience, but hopefully tonight that will not happen. We shall see. But yeah, we're going to jump in and just talk about simple ways to save money, pay off debt. And Eric's going to give you some pro tips on, automatic, I can't even say the word, making your savings automatic and some other helpful tips that you guys can take home and really start to implement and start doing, tonight, tomorrow. So thanks for joining us. And don't forget, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat box. And how do I make it go to the next slide?
Sarah magically does that. Oh my gosh, there we
Oh,
are.
okay.
I'm not wearing a tie
Oh, there
tonight,
we
so we should
are.
skip
Okay.
we should skip that slide. Why don't you introduce yourself for the folks who don't know you, and then I'll gladly do the same.
Thanks. Sorry, guys. This is the first time I've used this program. I'm used to Zoom, so this is just a little different for me. So thank you for your patience. I'm Ashley Patrick, founder and CEO of Budgets Made Easy and the Money Mindset podcast. And I help busy moms simplify, create simple systems so that they can save money and pay off debt so that you can do what you actually want to do in life. Like if you want to stay at home with your kids or change careers or travel or whatever, you need a solid plan and to pay off debt in most cases to be able to do that. So I really help moms do that so they can do whatever it is that they want to do with their life.
And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eric
Eric?
Brotman. I am the CEO of BFG Financial Advisors in Maryland. Started my practice in 1994, which makes me the old guy on this call. Started the business in 2003, and we work with multi-generational families and folks of all ages to help do financial planning, wealth management, and make good decisions with money. And sometimes it is about the money mindset. So one of the reasons why Ashley and I decided to do this tonight is I was a guest on her podcast and was blown away by her energy and ideas. And so I had her as a guest on my podcast, which is called Don't Retire, Graduate. And we could talk about that. But the idea here is that retirement in its traditional sense is lousy for you, and we should all move on like it's a graduation to the next phase of life. But Ashley was on my podcast, and we said, oh, we've got to do something because her energy was just too contagious to not do something together. So that's a little bit about me. Why don't we dive in?
Absolutely.
So let's start with some goal setting, and I'll kick this one off, and we'll sort of alternate if that works. Um, Financial goals are definitely important in terms of getting yourself on track. However, I would argue that it is impossible to set a goal to try and get somewhere until you know where you are. So, in order to set financial goals, whether that is the high level goal of financial independence, or whether it's chipping away at a student loan, or chipping away and at a mortgage, or buying a first home, or preparing for your own kids' education, whatever those financial goals look like, it's real important to reduce them to writing, to have them be measurable and reasonable, and potentially to have an accountability partner. And I suspect Ashley's a great accountability partner for a lot of folks, and we certainly try to do the same kind of thing. And it allows you to figure out first where you are, and then what's the best way to get where you want to be. And some of those are quantifiable, and a lot of them are behavioral. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But in terms of setting financial goals, make sure they're reasonable. Make sure that you're accountable to someone, whether it's your spouse or partner, or a financial advisor or a coach. And that's where I would get started. What do you think, Ash?
Oh, absolutely. So what I try and help people do is to really visualize like what they want their life to look like. That could be creating a vision board. It could be creating visuals to help you reach those goals. Like I've got my debt tracker back there for my student loans that I filled in as I was going. But making visuals of where you want to go is so important. And like you said, and we're going to talk about it, figuring out where you're starting so that you can figure out how to get to your goals. Because it's really just what I always like to say is a budget is just a roadmap to your dreams. And so you got to know where you're going and where you're starting. And then you create the roadmap to get there. So, you really got to dream and visualize what you want. And it needs to be really important. Dean Graziosi talks about the 7 layers of why. Like, why do you want to get there? It can't just be like a general, well, I just want to be better with my money. Like, that's not good enough. Like, why do you want to be better with your money? I think I need to save. Well, why do you need to save? Like, and keep asking why you need to do each thing, like at least 7 times, and really dig down into why, because that will really help you stay focused on those long-term goals, because it's not always going to be easy. When you have a lot of debt or you have like a big savings goal, it can feel really overwhelming, especially when you're just starting and you're trying to figure all this out, and it can be really overwhelming. And so when you really have the visuals and the vision for where you want to go, it will help keep you more accountable. It'll help keep you more focused as you try to get there and follow your roadmap, because things are going to come up that are going to try and derail you, right? So you want to have a very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goal. So a SMART goal, if you're not familiar with SMART goals, I love them. You don't want to just have I want to pay off debt. Like, that's not specific enough. It's not measurable. It's not timely. Like, it would be a better and a smart goal if you say, I want to pay off $24,000 in debt in 1 year. Like, that's specific, it's measurable. For, some people, it's realistic and attainable, and it's timely. So you just have to kind of, based on your situation, make sure it's realistic and attainable, whatever that goal is. Like, I'm not going to go run a marathon next week. Like, that might be a smart goal, but that's not realistic or attainable for me. Like, that's not going to happen. So yeah, you need to just make sure it's realistic, attainable, and make sure it's specific and timely. Like, we don't. I know Eric deals a lot with like future planning and things like that, which is great. But when you're wanting to do like smaller, quicker goals, it needs to be like a year goal, a 2 year goal, that type of thing, that's still moving in the direction of those long-term goals, of course. But that'll help you stay more focused along the way to those bigger goals if you make smaller, SMART goals, smaller short-term goals.
I couldn't agree more with you. You're so right. And SMART goals, I was actually thinking that, so you read my mind once again. Sarah, if you'd flip over. All right, you want to take this one first?
Oh, sure. So, where is your money going? So, we've talked about where you want to go. Well, we have to talk about where you're at, right? Like, where's your money going right now? Like, and this is a very eye-opening exercise, but it's also the one that people don't want to do. But it's so incredibly important to know where you're starting from. So, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, if it seems like you're always running out of money before payday, it's time to really dig deep and figure out where your money is going, because it's most of the time not where you think it's going. Like, in our heads, we underestimate what we're spending. And when you do this exercise, you will really see that you most likely do have money. It's just not going where you want it to go. A lot of times it's $5 here, $10 there, $20 there, but by the end of the month, it adds up. And so that is typically why people can't save or pay off their debt or reach those goals, because they're not paying attention to where their money's going. So that's really like the first step, after you figure out where you want to go, to figure out where you're at. And this is really the easiest way to save the most amount of money the fastest, because usually for the people that I work with, and it was true for me as well, It's usually food, groceries, eating out, fast food. It all adds up. So, most people I talk to, it's like either the second most expensive thing that they spend money on besides their mortgage, or it's more than their mortgage. So, this is usually a very quick and easy way to save the most amount of money when you realize, that's not where I realized my money was going. Like, I really can save, I can make these changes. This is where that starts so that you can start making those adjustments and the mindset shifts to be able to save, like seeing that you actually do have money left over at the end of the month.
It's funny. We had these conversations on both podcast episodes we did together. I think budget is a dirty word, and I despise the
Yeah.
process of budgeting. You know, we budget for our company, but the idea of budgeting for my home and for my personal life is just daunting. But tracking where your money's going, sometimes it begins with having the right systems in place. So one of the things that we encourage people to do is have more than just a yellow pad or a spreadsheet. Have a software package, whether it's Mint, whether it's Quicken, whether it's something proprietary. Have a software package that tracks these things. Ideally, one that downloads your credit card statements, your bank statements, all of the various types of accounts that you have, because it'll create an amazing picture for you at the end of the year to figure out, or the end of the month or quarter, to figure out what you actually spent on some of these things, whether it's streaming services, whether it's entertainment, whether it's dining, whether it's utilities, all the various types of things that we have in our lives and in our personal budgets. I have a budgeting worksheet in the new workbook that we published for Don't Retire, Graduate, and coming up with those categories was enough to, I know you do a lot of budgeting with your clients, Ashley, and I applaud you for having the tenacity to do that. I think if I had to sit down and do a budget, I'd go kicking and screaming. But I love that you encourage people to do that. It is very important. It's a big step. So I know the next thing we're going to talk about is your blueprint, because you've created this idea, and I hope you can share it with not only the folks who know you already, but some of the folks we don't know yet on tonight's call.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it is really important to just find what works for you. Like for me, the way I do my budgeting, an app doesn't work very well for me. So I do write it out, but it does take a little bit of time. But once you really practice these things and get in that habit, it doesn't take that much time. Like I spend less than 30 minutes a month on my budget. And once you get like this foundational stuff laid out, it's generally the same month to month. Of course, you're going to have adjustments here and there, and you have to, stay on top of it, because if you overspend one week and you're not aware of it and not paying attention to where your money's going, and then overspend the next week and the next week, it's hard to course correct in the month. So if you just wait till the end of the month to look at that, there's not time to fix it. But if you look at it, every other week, every 2 weeks, there's still time in the month to make adjustments in other categories so that you're not overspending for the whole month, even if you overspend on like one category. So the blueprint that I like to use, and I've used this really since I started working at like 16 years old, is just what makes the most sense to me. I never understood, like I understand like budgeting overall for the month so you can see everything, but I prefer to budget by paycheck so that I know what bills to pay out of each paycheck. So that just makes the most sense to me. So my month doesn't actually start on the first, which is why those apps don't work very well for me. Like my budget starts on the first paycheck. And so without, oh, actually, hang on, I can show you a visual. I think, because I
I
just
thought
did
one of
this
your
all
kids was
last week. Let's see if this.
I thought one of your kids was invading your space again. All
No, I threatened them pretty good tonight, so I hope they don't.
right. Okay.
Shoot, I'm not sure where I put it. I just did all this last week, and I thought I had the sheets. Oh, nope, that's not it. I should have grabbed it before. I didn't think about it till now. So if you take like just a blank calendar and basically highlight your paychecks and when you get paid and when your bills are due, all the bills due from like the 1st to around the 14th get paid from the last paycheck of the month before. So you're paying things ahead, so you're not paying things late. And then the things from like the 15th to the end of the month get paid from the actual first paycheck of the month. So then that second paycheck of the month pays the things in the next month. So to use March as an example, so say you got paid on the 5th, that'll pay bills from like the 15th toward the end of the month. And then if you get paid by biweekly, your next paycheck would be on the 19th, and that'll pay things at like the very, very end of the month into the first of the next month. So that will kind of help you get on this schedule of paying things 2 weeks early. And so you're not paying things late. That's the biggest thing, is knowing how much, what bills to pay from each paycheck. I mean, the overview of the month is fine. So you can see kind of like the totals of the categories, but that doesn't really help you to know when to pay things. And so you're not paying things late. You might also have to, as you're working through this, if you're going to use this method and kind of set it up, you may have to pay some things twice in 1 month to get on that schedule. So if you're used to paying, I had this happen to me once because I had just started gymnastics. And so like it was due on the 5th of the month, and I was paying it out of the 1st of the month the first time just to set it up. And then I realized, well, that's not going to work. So I had to take it out of the first paycheck to pay it initially, and then I had to take it out of the second paycheck to pay it for the next month. So there may be some things, if you're used to like paying things like a little late or like right on time because of the way the paychecks fall and you're paying it out of the wrong paycheck, you may have to pay it twice in 1 month. So this could take you a little while, or with tax season coming up, it's a good opportunity to get ahead on some bills. So you could use that too to kind of get on this better schedule so that you're not paying things late. It also helps you with like things like food and gas. I mean, gas is kind of whatever it is. We don't have as much control over that. But with food, if you break it up into like either a weekly amount or a biweekly amount, it'll help you stick to it more. And then that way you have money for your other bills, and you're not spending all your food money at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month you're like, crap, I need more food and I'm out of my food budget. So I have found that that works really well for me, is dividing it up into either weekly or biweekly for things like food that are kind of variable, and it'll help you stick to it just a little bit more so you don't like spend everything like at the beginning of the month. Because if you have just your monthly overview, you're like, okay, well, I have $800 to spend on food this month. Well, you don't really have the $800 on the first, right? You don't have it. You only have so much of it when you first get paid. So just to me, logically, that just makes more sense. And I can look for for a calendar here if it would make more sense to actually show it.
We could
Because
probably
sometimes you,
share it with everybody afterwards. So that's
okay,
don't
yeah.
panic. You have a
I
very organized setup there.
actually I don't. Everything's on the floor, so it wouldn't be on camera.
E- Excellent. Well, let's go to the next concept. And if Ashley's idea of a financial blueprint is to budgeting, sort of budgeting 1.0, I'm going to share a strategy that I would dare call budgeting 2.0, which is once you've got that system down, now it's time to start figuring out what the most important bill is every month. And in my mind, the most important bill every month is the one to yourself. It's the one to your savings, to your retirement, to your investments, to your debt, the things that you need to do to improve your financial health and well being. To me, that comes first. And, so there's lots of rules of thumb about how much house should I buy, or based on my income, what should my rent be or my mortgage be? And those bother me a lot, because a lot of times that is pushing to the nth degree, and it's just not necessary to spend. Just because you can qualify for a mortgage doesn't mean it's going to be good for you, for example. So um, at the end of the day, it's real important to figure out how much you're paying, how much you're saving, what your savings rate is, and what it needs to be to get where you're going. So we talked a little bit about starting with the inventory and figuring out where you are. And Ashley, you talked about the SMART goals and some of the short-term goals. In terms of the long-term goals, it's great to have a path to financial independence. And there's a whole movement out, the FIRE movement, that's talking about being financially independent and retired early. And we can debate the concept of retirement, but the reality is financial independence is a great goal, whether you're 24 or 84. It really doesn't matter. It's great to be financially independent. What does that mean? That means that you have enough wherewithal, enough either recurring income or enough assets to create recurring income that you can't outlive. It means you will run out of oxygen before you run out of money, which ultimately is good because I've heard it said that to be young and broke is an inconvenience, and to be old and broke is a tragedy. And the reality is, when you're first getting started and you've got that first job and maybe you've got some student loans, things are complicated, and you're really learning how to handle some of these things, how to navigate some of them in the first time. But as you progress in your career, a lot of times you will start to gain some momentum, whether it's through higher income, whether it's through side hustles, whether it's through debt reduction. And it's really important to figure out what that percentage needs to be. And I don't like rules of thumb. I don't think there is such a thing as you should save 10% of what you make, or 15, or for some people it's 4, and for some people it's 34. It depends how far behind you are, how old you are, and what financial independence means to you. But have a path. Know what it is, so that if you make $5,000 a month and you know that you need to maintain a 15% savings rate in order to hit your financial independence target, and you can figure these things out, it means you have to save $750 a month. That's an awful lot of money for some folks, and so there's people who can do that and others who cannot. But if you earn that money and you can save that 15%, and by the way, your company match counts toward that. So if you have a 401k and your employer's putting in 3 or 4 or 5%, where they're matching into your HSAs, their contributions count toward your percentage. That's still money that's going into your account before it goes to any of your bills. So to me, it's about paying yourself first. It's about having that long-term view, in addition to the short-term view, Ashley, that you talked about, which is very much a paycheck to paycheck, and how do we make sure we're not running short? I think a lot of people save by accident. A lot of
Hmm.
people pay the bills and hope there's something left over at the end of the month, and if there is, they save it. I try and encourage people to save first, then pay the bills. If there happens to be something left over at the end, super. Treat yourself. You've already done what you had to do. That's when you go get that extra latte or whatever. But when you're first getting started, pay yourself first. Live on 80 or 85 or 90% of what you make. And not only will you never starve, you'll have an emergency fund. You'll have resources for life when it happens, whether it's a dental procedure or a flat tire or a washer and dryer or triplets. whatever whatever life throws at you, it's good to be ready for those things. So that's what I would share with paying yourself first. um, let's move on to the next piece, if we can. um, and talking about saving money in the right places. Ash, I'll tackle this one first, if I may. And um, this is where you have to think about different kinds of diversification. If you are saddled with adverse debt, that comes first in almost every case. The only thing I might put ahead of consumer or student debt is enough of a retirement contribution to maximize your match. Because I know of no other way to get 50 cents or a dollar on your dollar immediately like that. So as long as you're not in dire straits, that might come first. After that, it's about paying off adverse debt. It's about creating a war chest, that savings account that's going to make a difference. It's paying no interest. It doesn't matter. The reason it's important is that you don't have to turn to Visa or MasterCard immediately when there's a problem. And so you start with that, and then you begin to save or invest in other ways, so that you create some diversification, not just in terms of your investments, but in terms of the types of accounts you have. Some of them are long term. Maybe you're funding a Roth IRA, and that's great for long term, but it's not going to solve a problem for you when you're 35. So it's also important to have some assets that you can get your hands on. Um, what do you tell people, Ashley, about the right places to save, or the right strategy around figuring out how to do that?
Well, I absolutely agree with, saving and paying yourself first. Obviously, if you have too many bills, it's going to be a little difficult to do. So,
Yeah.
try and save, at least a small emergency fund. I think right now, with everything going on in the world, at least a month of expenses is ideal. And then focus on paying off debt, just like you said. So, you don't want to have to use debt if something comes up while you're trying to pay off debt, right? So you need to have a little bit of savings. It doesn't need to be an astronomical amount. And I know if you've never saved before, you feel like you just can't save, you know, um, set a smaller target goal, $500. If you've never saved, $500 might feel like a lot. So, that could be your small target goal. And then once you hit that, you could say, okay, well, I did do that. I can do it. Hit the next goal of $1,000 or 1 month of expenses. So that way, just so you can cash flow anything that may come up, because stuff will come up. It always does. Like, that is life. And so you really need to have that kind of life buffer for yourself. Some other things to think about when you're creating your budget or, saving money. Of course, we already talked about retirement and stuff, but to remember those things that don't come up every single month that you still need to save for, like your vehicle taxes, if you need to pay income taxes, you need to save that, anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas, like these things seem to sneak up on people when really you should be thinking about them anyway. Like, you're going to have to pay them eventually. So if you can fit that into your monthly budget. Or, what I like to do too, if you're paid biweekly, you get the 2 extra paychecks every year. And if you get a tax return, you can use that money to kind of fill some of these savings buckets or savings accounts to kind of, as you're figuring this out and figuring out a routine and getting in those habits that are going to help you in the long term so you can save for retirement and all that stuff. So if you can either fit it into your budget or like just fill it with, in a large amount of money that just comes in with your extra paychecks or tax return or bonuses or whatever, go ahead and fill those and save it at a different bank than your regular checking account. Like, you need to make it hard to get to. So like, I like online banks that, it takes a couple days to get back into my account. So I know if I transfer it, like I really needed to transfer it. It wasn't just, I'm at Target and want to buy something. So you need to make it a little bit harder to access, because what'll happen is you're like, oh, I'll put it back later, and you take it out, and then that happens over and over again. So just keep that in mind too as you're setting these up and thinking about what things to save for, how much to save, where to save, that type of thing. So an online bank, there's several of them. Keep that in mind as you're setting this up, and several things to think about: holidays, school costs, sports, maintenance like car maintenance, house maintenance. You've got to kind of plan for those things as much as you can. I mean, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and there's not much extra money, then maybe we need to think about ways to cut expenses or make extra money as well. So that's always, like, that's a whole nother webinar we could do on
Yeah,
those two
that's
topics.
right.
So so yeah, save first, save for some of these things, plan for emergencies, and then start paying off your debt as fast as you can without making yourself crazy. Like, you need to still enjoy life, or you're not going to follow through with it, and you're just going to give up and quit. And that doesn't do you any good, right? So do what works for you, what will keep you sane, will keep you motivated to keep going. So, but we want to do it relatively fast, but it doesn't need to be like soul sucking fast.
Soul sucking fast.
Soul sucking
I like
fast.
that. Let's talk about debt. Sarah, if you'd flip the slide, this is the perfect segue to how to do this. We've talked about, oh, you should pay your debts off. And people are like, well, super, where do I begin? And there are lots of different strategies and lots of different suggestions for organizing debts in order to figure out what to pay first. Like, where do you start? If you've got 3 student loans, 2 credit cards, a car payment, and this laundry list of stuff, where do you begin? And so, there are several chapters in Don't Retire, Graduate that are dedicated to figuring out how to do this and showing strategies. Some of them are obvious or feel obvious. Some of them people don't think about. So, for example, in in a lot of cases, if you're fortunate enough to own a home, you may have grown some equity in that home, and that equity in your home might be something that you can tap in order to pay off other types of debts. Now, that's not something you want to do over and over again. That is not that's not saying, hey, go to Target, like Ashley said, go to Target and just blow a bunch of money because you have this equity built up. That's not a good strategy. But if If an emergency arises, a line of credit can help. Otherwise, if you just have these debts to pay off, what I normally suggest is that you put the debts in order. Put them in order of priority, and all you need is a list of the debts. You need to know what the minimum payments are. You need to know what the interest rates are, and you need to know what the tax ramifications are. Some debts are tax deductible and some aren't. So if you have a tax deductible debt, it might be, even with a higher interest rate, not as expensive as a lower interest rate non-deductible debt, for example. If you're in this position where you have this list, pay the highest interest rate first. Chip away at it, and if and you know, I know a lot of people. We've seen a lot of folks who have come in to our office and they have enormous personal debt, but they're paying extra to their mortgage instead of their consumer debt. And the mortgage is at 3.5%, and the consumer debt's at 17%. And they think it's better to pay the mortgage because they want to own the home and it's the biggest debt and so forth. You really want to focus on the interest rate. What is the cost of having that debt? And the cost is your monthly interest. So if you have extra bandwidth and you're sending an extra $50 a month to whatever debt it is, make sure it's the one with the highest rate. And as soon as you get one of those debts paid off, first celebrate with whatever your means of celebrating is, because it's okay to celebrate victories, and that's a victory. But beyond that, if you're used to paying $300 a month toward your debt and you get one of them paid off, keep paying $300 a month. Start paying that second highest rate and start paying even more toward it. It won't cost you a dollar extra per month to do it, but it will pay debt off faster. Not soul sucking fast necessarily, but faster. And so that's the strategy. And there's a whole worksheet and a way to look at this and start thinking about what do you pay first. And some of the software packages will also run debt reduction programs, or a financial advisor can run one and say, here's your accountability. These are your coupons for this year. This is what you need to pay. And that is sometimes it's hard. I mean, debt is something people are embarrassed by sometimes. And the reality is, we can't beat ourselves up over things that have already happened. It's there.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we kick the heck out of each other, and ourselves for things that have already happened, we're not going to make it better. So acknowledge where you are. If you're in a tight spot, acknowledge where you are, take a deep breath, and start to strategize ways to get out, whether it's extra income or lower expenses or just having a strategy. So that's how I would organize debts. How would you tackle that?
Well, I'm going to advocate for, a different way. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's fun.
No,
No, well,
it's very
that's
similar.
fine.
So I agree with like looking at interest rates. Another way to do it is the debt snowball, which is what you talked about. Taking that payment, rolling it into the next one. But I found that people stay motivated when they can pay off something and get that quick win. So but, you may also, let's say you've got your tax return coming and you're getting a couple $1,000s. And you're like, okay, what should I pay off? So, like you said, make a list. And another way you could do it, instead of looking at the interest rate or even the smallest amount, you could look at the list and say, well, what is going to make the biggest impact in my budget? Like, what would free up the most amount of money? You could also think about what would give me the most joy to pay off. Like, what is that bill that just makes you so miserable to pay every single month, and it would make you feel like so great and so accomplished if you paid it off. So like if you're in that situation, pay that off or pay off the one with the highest interest rate. Like if you are paycheck to paycheck and you feel like you're not going to be able to pay off any debt, pay off a small debt, even if it's no interest rate, even if it's just a medical bill and it's like $200. If it's going to relieve some stress from you, pay it off. And that will give you some motivation to keep going because you know what, honestly, it doesn't matter how you do it as long as you do it. So whatever way is going to motivate you the most and get you to just keep going with it is the best way. Like it really doesn't matter how you do it as long as you just do it.
So you're saying, kind of like trying to get into shape, there's two methods. You could either run on the treadmill or you could give up your M&Ms habit. Both are ways to do this. They'll
Exactly.
both get you to a better place. There's just two different strategies.
Exactly.
For me, I'd rather have the M&Ms and have to
I
run.
was just gonna
Just
say that. I actually have a whole bag of M&Ms right here.
just for the record, I would rather have to run a little longer and enjoy my M&Ms. So let's move on to the next slide if we can. And Ashley, why don't you tackle this first because I know you have some calls to action and some actionables that people can take right away.
Oh, absolutely. So this week I actually have my money success coaching group. It's open. It only opens like 3 times a year. And so now it's open until Sunday. So, if you need that accountability, like we talked about, to actually follow through with these things, because we all sign up for the free workbooks, the webinars, and we do all these things, but then we just don't do anything with the information. Like, well, I'll do it later, I'll get to it later. So what this group really helps you do is stay accountable to those goals and your progress and what you want to do. Like, with me, I do the same things. Like, I have a business coach that really just helps me stay accountable, because I'll be like, oh, I'll do that later. I'll do that later. But like, I know I'm accountable to her. And so it really helps me stay focused and on track with what I need to do for my goals. And so this group really helps you do that. And of course, we still do the give you the tools and the training, and we do Q&As and all this stuff to help you get there. But I feel like the biggest benefit of it is that accountability. And so that's only open until Sunday. It closes Sunday at midnight, 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. The doors will shut. It won't be open again until either the summer or the fall. I'm not even sure exactly when. I keep changing my mind, but it only opens a couple times a year. So if you want to jump on that with me, you can go to budgetsmadeeasy.com/membership, and we'd love to have you. And really, I guess that's about it. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat as well.
That's perfect. And my call to action, there's a few things that folks can do in order to begin this process. One of them is to pick up a copy of Don't Retire, Graduate. It's a book and a workbook and a path to financial freedom. It's a very inexpensive way to get these resources. Now, Ashley said you can sign up for these webinars and then not do anything with it. Please don't buy the book and then let it collect dust. Either use it or don't buy it because I don't want to hurt you. I want this to be a good thing. So I know it'll be a tool that'll be useful for folks. The other thing is, if you're not really sure what financial planning is, there's this idea of financial planning. You're like, but I don't have enough finances, or I'm not wealthy enough, or this is only for rich people. The fact is that's not true, and it is a shame that people feel that way. But there are things that you can learn about what financial planning is, and we have a white paper that's out that's free, and you can go to whatisfp.com and you can download a copy of the book. And if you're interested in that, it'll give you a sense of what that process is and how it works. And it's a free resource that's available to everyone. Um, I think, Sarah, on the next slide, we have a couple other things before we get to Q&A. One is, and we'll just leave our contact info up on the screen while we do Q&A so that folks can jot that down and so forth. We absolutely would love to hear from folks who are on this call, and we would do a free introductory call with anyone. There is a website that is financialplanningforall.com, and it really is designed to debunk the myth that financial planning is for the rich. We've created some systems that are not super expensive, that are attainable, and are relevant for folks who are maybe on their way to trying to build wealth, but aren't there yet. And so if that is you, check out financialplanningforall.com. You can schedule an introductory call. We have 8 financial advisors in our office, and we'd love to talk to you. And Budgets Made Easy, you want to talk a little bit about that as well? Or there's your membership for the success coaching. So that's there too.
Yeah, and I would highly encourage you to reach out to them with, a financial advisor just really helps you, give you more options that you may not know about or you may not have thought about. And everybody's situation is a little bit different, and so you need somebody that is working for you to help you reach those big goals and really maximize your situation. So I would highly encourage you to take him up on that offer. And then, of course, the money success coaching for staying on track with those goals and paying off debt, saving money, you can go to budgetsmadeeasy.com/membership. You can email me if you have any questions. Um, yeah, just let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, and I think there are some in the queue. Sarah, do you want to dissect those or see if we can get to a few of them? We have plenty of time to do Q&A.
I know I
Yes.
talk
Okay.
so fast.
That's okay. Sorry, go ahead.
We have a few people asking for clarification on some things that we've mentioned. So we have someone who wanted to know that white paper that you talked about, that was what is financial planning, and it can be downloaded for free at whatisfp.com. We also have one that can be downloaded at lowtaxbook.com. That's a way to help you save money on taxes. It has some easy strategies for saving money there. Someone also asked if we will receive access to this recording, and yes, it will be sent to your email in the next few days. And then the book that was mentioned is Don't Retire, Graduate, which is available on Amazon, and it's actually the ebook version is on sale right now. I want to say it's like $1.99 if you want to go grab that ebook. That's today only. It's $1.99. And then questions.
Ashley, it sounds like all the questions were for Sarah. Sarah,
I
you
have
want
to-
to you want
I don't even
you want
think
to
I
jump
have
on the
to prove that
webcam?
I participated. I have to
Oh,
prove
there
I
you go.
participated.
Okay.
I was here. Okay, we have another question that is, how do I know if I need a budget coach or a financial advisor?
Great question. You want to tackle that first? That's a
um,
great question.
No. Well, a financial advisor, is different. Like I can't advise you. And maybe Eric, maybe you should answer this question because the
All right.
financial advisor, advises you on much different things than just a budgeting coach. So I can help you stay accountable, create your plan for paying off debt, saving money, but I can't advise you on like investments. Sorry, investments and things like that. So an advisor, I say they go hand in hand. Like I feel like you should probably have both and it depends on different stages. So like I feel like, and Eric, you can argue with me if you think differently.
I would
When you're
never. I
just
know
starting
better.
out, you're living
I would never
you're
argue
just
with you. We
starting
can
out and
debate.
you're paycheck to paycheck and you're really struggling with finding ways to save. You don't feel like you have the money to save or pay off debt. Maybe a budget coach would be better suited for that situation. But Eric, you tell me your opinion.
What I would say is there is a place, definitely a place for both coaching and planning when it comes to finances. I would totally agree with Ashley. First of all, I know that's good for me to agree with her, so I'll begin with that, which is that just about anyone can benefit from coaching and accountability, and it is attainable, it is affordable, and it is a great way to start. I suspect that Ashley will be able to help some of the folks on this call get to the point where they graduate to needing or wanting financial planning in a whole nother way. If you're struggling with debt or you're paycheck to paycheck, Ashley would absolutely be the better first call because she's going to help you with actionable items that you can readily not only jump on and take advantage of, but also a community of people who are maybe in the same type of situation, and you can bounce ideas off each other, you can encourage each other, and I think that's a really valuable, sort of incredible membership. Um, for us, I would say if you're at a point where you're ready to start paying yourself first, where you're ready to start saving or investing, even in a modest way, but if you're ready to do that, then we can begin to help, and we have resources. And the financial planning process, the cliff notes of that ebook that we talked about are the financial planning process involves everything. It involves all the what ifs, all the legal and tax issues, the employee benefits selection, insurances, investment portfolios, retirement plans, education, savings, banking, real estate, mortgages. I mean, it literally is. Think of it like a primary care physician would look at you and do a physical exam for you. that's what we are financially. We'll do a physical exam. And sometimes when we talk to people, what we tell them is, you ought to have a coach. So sometimes we'll say, Ashley's the person you ought to talk to first, because really, um, I believe that even though doctors have the Hippocratic oath and financial advisors don't per se, I still believe in it, which is first do no harm. So at the end of the day, if we feel like we're the wrong solution for you, we're going to try and help find you the right solution, because it doesn't benefit any of us if we cause any strife to you financially. We want to make sure you're ready for us, and we're happy to tell you if you are and how that works. And we're also happy to coach you to call the coach. That's what Ashley's for. And some of you might want both of us, and we're okay with that too. Even if we have different debt reduction strategies, they'll both get you there without being soul sucking. So that, I think, is
Exactly.
that's what I'm taking away from this webinar: is do not have soul sucking speed on your debt reduction. That's literally
Yeah.
what I'm taking away from it. It's so good.
Well, during the last podcast, it was the B word. So, now it's soul sucking. So,
Yes, and I want you to know, Ashley said the B word on my show, and I tried to explain that it's a family show, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, did I?" I said, "Yes, budget." She goes, "Oh, phew." So no big deal. Sarah, anything else from our audience?
We have one more just piece of clarification.
Sure.
Eric, you may have left this out, but yes, you are the author of Don't Retire, Graduate.
Oh,
Someone was wondering if that was a book that you wrote or just a book that we'd like to promote.
both.
Yes, Eric did write that book.
Both. It is, unlike Ashley, who was totally unprepared with visuals. This is Don't Retire, Graduate, and it is written to be it's written like a college curriculum, where you have a freshman year, a sophomore year, a junior year, and a senior year, and each of these courses address different things, whether it's cash management or debt management or retirement or investing or insurance, and you don't have to read it in a linear way. Some of these things will apply to you now in your life, and some of them might not, or some of them maybe did 10 years ago and don't anymore, and some of them don't now and will 10 years from now. So it really allows you, much like a school tries to find a student where they are and help them from where they are. That's what this is designed to do. And for folks who are just getting started, start at the beginning. And for folks who are 3 years from retirement, you might not want to start at the beginning. You might fast forward, because you've lived through some of those things. And if you love it, please, please, not only pick up a copy, and Sarah's right, the ebook I think is $1.99 today, and I think it'll be $2.99 tomorrow. So 11:59 p.m. is a big thing, and that's the e-version. But it's really a way to in a do-it-yourself kind of way get some knowledge on this. So thanks, Sarah, for the clarification. What else?
How far in the future should you be setting your SMART goals?
Ooh, good question. You
I
want
can
to
answer that. So,
you answer
um,
it, and then I'll argue with you.
debate. We'll debate. No,
We'll debate.
so what I like to do is set a 3-year goal and then break that down into smaller goals. So a 3-year goal, a 2-year goal, 18 months, 1 year, 9 months, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, and even if you've been through the budget challenge, the 1 week goal. So, if you're just like overwhelmed, you don't know where to start, set a 1 week goal to get started and do your budget, and then move on to your 1 month goal of whatever that is, cutting so many expenses, saving so much money, whatever, and then 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, 24, 36 months. That's what I like to do.
Me too. Here's what I would say. I would say there are some goals that I think are year to year. There are some that are quarter to quarter. Ashley's right.
Mhm,
Some are weekly or even paycheck to paycheck. There's no doubt. Most of the goal setting that we help people with is much longer term than that.
mhm.
We really take, and that's again a difference between financial advisors and financial coaches is, um, you know, Ashley's more likely to be looking at that 3 and 6 and 9 months, and we're much more likely to say, if this is where you want to be in X number of years, based on where you are today, here's the path, here's how you get there. Now, setting a long-term goal seems absurd in some ways, because it's not exactly going to happen that way. Your returns won't be that, your income won't be that, inflation won't be that. All the variables are wrong. The math is right, but the scenario is wrong. but it allows you from, every 6 months or every year to look at the path you're on and then to adjust the trajectory. So I think there are a lot of micro changes to a macro budget or a macro plan. And so I agree with Ashley. There's some definite short term, this is what you ought to do. And we tend to take a longer view of this, unless you have a child who's 16 and you need to figure out how to pay for college. Then it's very short term. So, but for
Yeah.
the most part, we're looking at how much money will it take for you to be working because it's optional? What will it take for you not to need a paycheck anymore? And that is the most powerful thing. And for everyone, it's a different number and there's different formulas and it's not based solely on age or income. I know some people with modest incomes who have built enormous wealth. And I know people with incomes that are jaw dropping who can't rub two nickels together because for every dollar they make, they spend $1.05. It doesn't matter how much your income is. It matters how much you're able to harness and save and grow. Um, High income is not wealth. It drives me crazy when the media says the wealthiest states are. Well, no, those are the highest income states. That doesn't necessarily take into effect what the income tax rates might be there or what the cost of living might be there.
Hmm.
I mean, if you live in Manhattan, New York, or you live in Manhattan, Kansas, there's nothing in common there except the name Manhattan in terms of financials because it costs different amounts of money to live there, to recreate there, and everything else. So it's not about income; it's about wealth. And what we try to do is help people build a path to financial freedom. And it begins with financial literacy. It begins with all the things you need to learn. And whether that's learning about budgeting, whether that's joining a community, whether it's learning about financial planning, it means arming yourself with enough knowledge to ask the right questions. How do you interview a potential financial advisor and know if you're meeting with the right person for you? What are the questions you need to ask? What are the things you want to know? When you go to see a doctor, sometimes you instinctively know what questions to ask. When you go to see a financial advisor, maybe you're not sure. And so all of that is covered in the book as well. How would you interview either your current advisor or 10 others you might consider? But you only need one.
Absolutely.
You only need one coach, though. She's right here. That's the only coach you'll ever need.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I completely agree with that. And I would say that really our thinking is probably the same because even with those long-term goals, you have to, break it down so that you know that you're getting there. And so I just try to really break that down so that you know that you're on the right track. And of course, like you said, things are going to change, things are going to come up, but as long as you know you're hitting those kind of milestones, you'll get there.
Yeah, I think that's the key. And when you start to look at what it will cost to live without a paycheck, the numbers, particularly if you're in your 20s, the numbers are going to look unbelievably huge. But you need to remember that our grandparents paid for their houses what some people pay today for cars.
Hmm.
Inflation is a stealth tax, and it's something to know about. The cost of things go up. You could get a gallon of milk for 5 cents at some point in this country, and a postage stamp was 3 cents, and that's not even relevant anymore. And if I
Hmm.
told you that a gallon of gas would be $18 a gallon at some point, you'd say, "Oh my gosh, that's impossible." And I'd say, "Well, no, it's not. It's not impossible. It won't be tomorrow, let's hope, but that's just what inflation does." And so it's important to recognize the numbers you're talking about. If you're talking 20, 30, 40, 50 years out, the numbers are going to look huge and daunting and impossible. And Ashley said she wasn't running a marathon next week, which we also agree on. I'm also not running a marathon next week or ever. But but
Yeah, me either.
but marathoners will tell you that it really is 1 mile at a time. And you may have this goal to run this long-term race, but you have to train for it to be ready for what the first mile will look like, and the second, and then the first three, and then the first five. So I think it's okay to have a long strategy, but short-term tactics.
Hmm. Yeah.
And budgeting and coaching will be, in some cases, very tactical, and planning is often very strategic, and they do work really well together, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say that even like once you get through like the foundational stuff and the paying off debt, like all that stuff, it gets so much easier. And you don't have to stay on top of the tracking. And, when you set up all this stuff to save automatically and you don't have to worry about it. It makes life so much easier. And I think that that's really what, that long term and that strategy and all that stuff really helps me. Like, I have a financial advisor too. Like, I need somebody else to, tell me like what strategies are best for taxes and long term, all that kind of stuff. Like, you need somebody that is more knowledgeable to really give you your different options so that you know the best route to take for your situation, because everybody's a little bit different and your goals are different than my goals. And so that you really need somebody that gives you a different perspective, that isn't emotionally involved, because money is emotional. Yeah, math is math, but but money's emotional. And
Oh
so
yeah.
you really need that kind of that outside perspective and that experience and that knowledge to help you make the best long-term decision for you.
I couldn't have said it better myself, except you have a financial advisor? Now you tell
I
me?
I do. I
Oh
actually
yeah,
have
well I
been
have a
I
coach.
might
How do you
need a
like
new
that?
one.
You
I'll
do.
be calling you.
Your financial advisor is not as much fun as this financial advisor, that's for sure.
That's true. That is
Well,
true.
there you go. I'll take the gig. Sarah, any closing questions? We got about 3 minutes left, I think, or 4 minutes left.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Someone wanted to know the names of the podcasts. Eric's podcast is the same name as the book. We made it easy. So that's the Don't Retire, Graduate podcast. And then actually, you also have one as well.
Yeah, and I didn't make my name easy. So it's the Money Mindset podcast. So I focus on money mindset and really like, and a lot of that, just to get started, is mindset focus. So that's what the podcast is about, getting through those mental blocks, keeping you from not saving or paying off debt.
For anyone who enjoyed our banter tonight, you can look in the podcast listings on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts and find the episode where I guested on the money mindset, and find the episode where Ashley guested on Don't Retire, Graduate. And you will find that this banter started months ago.
Yeah, I think yours was episode on mine was 33 or 34. So if that helps narrow it down,
Wow. I
I think.
have no idea what episode yours was. It's the one that said Conversation with Ashley Patrick
Yeah,
on
exactly.
on the title.
I only
My
know that
goodness.
because I don't have it that many. Like, because, we talked about, since the pandemic and having kids here all day, it's been very difficult to record podcasts. So, yeah, I don't have that many podcasts. So, you should be able to find it pretty easy.
Very good. Sarah,
Yeah,
closing
before we run
closing
out of
questions?
time, um, you had mentioned before that financial planning is not just for the rich.
Hmm.
What is that cost associated for people who don't have those millions of dollars in assets? Is it something that is attainable?
You know, at the end of the day, I think it is, but it's certainly not for everyone. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to send an email out to everyone who attended tonight's conference, and we're going to offer a discount for anyone who would like to engage our firm. Typically, to engage our firm is a $2,500. And for a lot of people, that's a lot of money. And for other people, that's just a great starting point. And we find we are able to find ways to save people money and to create and amplify money in a way that makes this very much a good investment. But it's not for everyone. So if that sounds daunting to you, or if we talk about it and our team doesn't feel like we can bring enough value to make this worthwhile for you, we will tell you and we'll help find you somebody who can. But we are going to send everyone an email with the ability to do that. The introductory call is free. If you go to financialplanningforall.com, you can schedule a half an hour with one of our advisors, and we'll just kick the tires and talk a little bit and find out what you're looking for. And if we can point you in the right direction, whether that's with us or elsewhere, we'll do it.
Okay, if anyone had questions that we weren't able to get to, because it is looking like we're about to run out of time, you can send an email to Eric, you can send an email to Ashley, or if you just respond to the emails that you've been getting from signing up to this webinar, they'll come straight to me, and I can either answer them for you or direct them to one of our lovely panelists today.
Ashley, this was fun. I knew it would be. I hope we helped a lot of people. I hope we got the wheels spinning and got everybody thinking about what's next. And I hope we get to do this again.
Absolutely. It was fun as always.
Very good. Well, now go wrangle those children. Have a great night, and thanks everybody for being here. Hopefully, you got something that you can take away from this that's actionable and that'll make a difference for you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Good night, all.